There was a monster you could not kill by killing it. Cut off one of its heads, and two grew back in its place. The harder you fought it, the stronger it became. The lion had taught Heracles that raw strength could win. The thing waiting in the swamps of Lerna was about to teach him the opposite, that sometimes strength is the trap. One labor was behind him. He had walked into Nemea with nothing but his hands, and walked out wearing the unkillable lion as a cloak. 11 still stood between Heracles and his freedom. The command came, as always, from a frightened king. Eurystheus, who hid in a buried bronze jar rather than share a room with him, sent word through a herald. Go to Lerna, kill the Hydra. Lerna was no ordinary marsh. The Greeks believed its bottomless lake was one of the secret doorways down into the underworld. Black water, endless reeds, and a smell that turned men back before they ever saw the thing that lived there. And what lived there was the Nemean Lion's own sibling. The poet Hesiod names the Hydra a child of Typhon and Echidna, the same monstrous parents that bred the lion Heracles already wore on his back. Hesiod says Hera herself raised the Hydra, fed it, grew it, and kept it in Lerna for one purpose. Like the lion, it was a weapon with a heartbeat, and it was meant for Heracles. How many heads did it have? Nobody could agree. Apollodorus says 9, other poets say 50 or 100, as if the creature wouldn't hold still long enough to be counted. But every telling agrees on one terrible detail: one of those heads could not die. Its blood was venom, its breath was venom. Ancient writers claimed the very smell of its tracks could kill a man. This was a monster you couldn't safely touch, couldn't safely cut, and couldn't safely stand near. So this time Heracles did not go alone. He brought his nephew, a young man named Iolaus, who drove the chariot, and who was about to matter far more than anyone expected. They came to the spring of Amiemone, where the Hydra denned beneath a great plane tree. And the Hydra did not come out. It coiled in the dark of its lair and waited, where its poison filled the air, and a man had to come to it. So Heracles forced its hand. He set fiery arrows to his bow and rained them into the lair until the heat and the smoke gave it nowhere left to hide. And out it came. The whole swamp seemed to stand up at once, necks uncoiling, heads hissing, the body dragging itself into the open in a fury. Heracles did what had always worked. He waded in, raised the great olive-wood club, and smashed one of the heads clean from its neck. And from the open neck, two new heads rose up, hissing, where one had been. He stared at what he had just done and understood he had only made it stronger. He swung again and again, faster and harder, and every head he tore away answered with two more. The monster was feeding on his strength. The more of himself he spent, the worse it got. And then Hera, watching from above, decided he wasn't losing fast enough. She sent one more enemy into the fight, a monstrous crab called Carcinus, that scuttled from the reeds and clamped its claw down on his foot. It was a mistake. Heracles brought his heel down and crushed the crab where it gripped him. Hera, for her trouble, lifted its broken shell into the night sky and set it among the stars, the constellation we still call Cancer. But the Hydra was still growing. There were more heads around him now than when he had started. For the first time since the labors began, Heracles was losing, and brute force was the reason. So he stopped trading blows, and he shouted for Iolaus. Between them they understood the thing all that strength had been missing. A cut neck grew back, unless you never let it close. Iolaus snatched up a burning torch. Now they worked as one. Heracles struck a head away, and before two could rise, Iolaus pressed fire to the raw stump and seared it shut. Burned closed, the neck could not grow. Head then fire, head then fire. The two of them found a rhythm, and for the first time the Hydra began to shrink instead of grow. What one man's strength could not do, two men and a torch could. One by one, the heads went dark and stayed down, until only a single head remained, the one that could not die. Fire would not kill it, nothing would. So Heracles did the only thing left. He cut the immortal head away from the body while it was still alive, still hissing, still trying to bite. Apollodorus tells us he carried that still living head to the roadside, dug down, and buried it deep, then rolled an enormous boulder on top of it. Somewhere under the road to Lerna, the story says, It is hissing still. The Lernaean Hydra was finished. The swamp went quiet for the first time in living memory, but Heracles wasn't leaving empty-handed, and what he did next would echo through the rest of his life. He knelt by the dead monster, drew his arrows, and dipped each iron head into its venomous blood. In that moment, Heracles armed himself with the deadliest weapon in the ancient world, arrows whose smallest scratch meant certain doom. Those arrows would win him the labors to come. The Stimophaleian birds, the giant Igerion, monster after monster, would fall to a single graze of Hydra venom. He had turned the thing that almost killed him into the weapon he could not lose with. But here is what no one in that swamp could know. Years later, one of these same arrows would poison a centaur named Iolaus, and through him, this very venom would one day kill Heracles himself. The Hydra got its revenge. It just took a lifetime to arrive. For now, though he had won, 2 monsters dead, 2 labors behind him, he carried the news home to Eurystheus, and the little king, still hiding in his jar, found a way to cheat him. Eurystheus declared the labor void. Heracles had not killed the Hydra alone, Iolaus and his torch had helped. So as far as the king was concerned, it didn't count. 2 done. The king said 1. It would not be the last time the king moved the line, and the next labor would test Heracles in a way no monster ever had, not a beast to overpower, but a sacred deer he was forbidden to harm, faster than an arrow, that he would chase to the ends of the earth for a full year. If the lion was about strength, and the Hydra about cleverness, the Lernaean hind was about patience. Follow the story. Heracles is only getting started.